Hello everyone and welcome back to another segment of short reviews for June 2019. These are the albums that I listened to from June and I didn't feel like making a full review out of them, or I didn't have that many things to say about them, and so I'm just going to tie them all up in this video and share a few thoughts about them, because you might also find something to your liking from one of these albums, because there are some albums that I do like from this segment and others that I don't really like. But anyways, not going to waste more time, here are the albums I'm going to talk about. I really don't get the hype of this Dipole album. I mean, even the album itself, like most of the tracks titled themselves as demo and unfinished. And this is pretty much what I got from this album. This is pretty much the experience with this album. This album truly does sound like demo quality and unfinished. There are so many just ideas from these things, so many tracks that just feel like filler, that do not progress to something more significant just because they're really short. Or there are just some moments where the production just feels a bit off because we're talking about demo segments. So yeah, I don't really get the hype behind an album from works that were released back in like 2013, and they're just like in a batch of a collection in a pretty much short album with so many just ideas that don't even feel that remotely fulfilling. There are not that many great ideas to this thing. While I do like some of the glitch experimental segments and some of the clever sampling choices, there is pretty much nothing to this album other than that to compliment about. It's a really forgettable album and it's a 5 out of 10 for me. I mean, I appreciate Future for deciding to go in a more sad and emo rap direction, but unlike with Future Hendrix, where there were actually some moments that would sound refreshing and intriguing, this one over here does not have the same elements. We just have your basic sound from Future, just with a few elements that are a bit different but are not that much well comprehended, and this just leaves me with a really just forgettable and uninteresting short EP, and I'm going to give it just a 4 plus out of 10. One of those metal albums that got me hyped just from the genre tags. It was an interesting album, but for me there were so many just elements that were a bit missing. I was looking for something that the styles and the genres would just feel more cohesive and more memorable. For example, I was expecting a bit more sludgy and heavy moments to it, but what I can really give to it is that it has some great production behind it. It's really nasty and heavy. The sound of this thing is definitely incredible, but considering some of the genres like going to elements of black and sludge metal, but also with post-hardcore, I was expecting a better combination of the sounds, and I don't really get that with this. While I do like some of the first songs, as the album would just progress and just keep going and going, the tracks would just keep getting more forgettable. It's not like the experience I had with Lament by Totaled. And this is an okay album, but honestly I was expecting a bit more from it, and I'm just going to give it a 6 minus out of 10. This new album from Motionless in White, it's not that bad. I mean, yeah, it has your typical side of nu metal and alternative metal and metalcore, so many things you would expect, but honestly their sound doesn't even bother me all that much. I think they have some nice tunes here and there are some nice moments, but of course it's not something all that special. I'm just going to give it a 6 minus out of 10. Yeah, it was not that bad of an album. Of course, I don't have an issue with Bruce Springsteen just sticking to a more country vibe, having a sound of like Americana and just folk rock, but also with some interesting elements of chamber pop. But the mixing of this thing is bad, especially the vocals from Bruce Springsteen. They're so high to the mix compared to the rest of the instrumentation that it just covers the entire thing. And Bruce is definitely not the singer that he once was. I don't like the vocals on this thing, and in general it's an album that I'm not a fan of. At least he tries, but it's not enough in my opinion. I'm just going to give this a 4 plus out of 10. Yeah, I did not enjoy this album, and especially, like I said, the mixing of this thing was really weird and off-putting. I like the style of Thom Yorke's music in his solo projects, going to this more melancholic electronic ambient techno sounds. I think there are some pretty solid works here and there, and for the most part I like the production, I like a lot of the sounds. One thing that kinda drags it down in my opinion is the vocals. I don't think they fit all that well with some of the sounds with these songs, and it has a vibe that I pretty much didn't like all that much from works like Radiohead, for example, and also giving a vibe of like Animal Collective and Panda Bear. Some moments were not that impressive, but it's still a decent set of tracks that in my opinion they could really work well in terms of a soundtrack. So yeah, not a bad work from Thom Yorke. I'm going to give this album a 6 plus out of 10. Another album from this year that got intense, like so much hype behind the debut from Black Midi. And I mean, the sound of Black Midi is definitely really good. I definitely like it at times how chaotic it is. The math rock and experimental rock elements to this album work really well. And there are some of these more intense moments that make for some great tracks in my opinion. For example, I love the first track 953 just because it's so messy and it's so unorthodox. Also towards the second half there are some solid moments. However, when the album goes to this more soft side of things, I feel a bit of a disconnection. I don't feel that these songs work all that well, and while this album probably gives a lot of emphasis on the lyrical content, the whole messy and progressive sound from Black Midi, I don't think it sounds like something all that special. While there are still some great moments, it's still not one of the greats in my opinion in regards to the whole sound of math rock and experimental rock. I like though that the album went into lots of different directions, and there are moments like the first track for example that resembles of something I would hear out of Mirrored from Battles, or there's a song that sounds so much like it was taken out of Filth by Swans. Also, another thing I'm not all that much of a big fan from this album are actually the vocals. I think it's the weakest part from all thing just because it feels a bit disconnected. I'm not a big fan of the vocals, though I like it when it goes to some of the more intense moments. It really sounds like the singer just gives 100% of himself in each song he just performs. It's just that I still feel that there are in some of the more chill moments where I don't really feel neither the vocals nor the whole instrumentation, but it's still a nice album. Maybe I don't find it to be that much of a great album as a lot of people tend to, but it's still not a bad experience, and I'm going to give it a 6 plus out of 10. And that's all about it from all the albums I wanted to mention from June 2019. What's your opinion of these albums? Like them, dislike them, why, and what do you want me to review next time? Let me know down in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.